Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Wayne's going to pray for us.
Bow your heads with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this time together, Lord. We pray that you'll give us guidance as we make these decisions, and Lord, let us be fair to all concerned. Thank you for the lovely citizens of Durant and for our country. We praise in your holy name. Amen.
Okay, let's salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Okay. Roll call.
David Rhines,
Present.
Michael Davis,
Present.
Mike Allen,
Present.
Connor Alford, Wayne Jones.
Present.
Okay, order of business. Do we have minutes to approve? Oh, yeah, there we go. So, I have a motion.
Motion to approve minutes of the prior meeting.
And a second?
Second.
David Rhines,
Yes.
Michael Davis,
Yes.
Mike Allen,
Yes.
Wayne Jones,
Yes.
Connor Alford.
Yes. Yes.
Do we have anything on that? No, on number 2. Okay. All right, so the first order of business is discussion, consideration, action on BOA 2020-03, request for variance to 157.032 regarding side setbacks for property located at the 4700 block of University Boulevard. What's that?
A, letter A.
Oh, I'm on B. I think I read all that. Discussion, consideration, possible action, BOA 2021-02, a request for variance to 157.032 pertaining to a lot size requirements for property located at 401 South 9th.
Good evening. This is a variance request from Spencer Barnett, who is the owner of the lot that's located at 401 South 9th. This recently went through City Council in September for a replat to divide the two lots, one lot into two lots. The applicant has requested a variance of the lot size requirements for a duplex. To place a duplex on the lot would need to be 8,000 square feet. The lot is currently 6,000 square feet. The lot, as you can see on the lot width and depth, it's about 75 by 80 approximately. And as a side note, the replat was approved by City Council. Notifications were made. We had no letters and comments come in on this one. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The applicant is also here as well.
Okay. Danielle,
Yes.
would it be accurate to say that under the municipal code or under the zoning, that this property is about 25% too small for the type of construction requested to be placed on it?
It's about 2,000 square feet short of to place a duplex on it, correct?
Okay. And then the property would still be usable for other purposes?
Correct. It could be used anything from well, the way it's understood is anything that is, it's zoned as C3.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do C2, C1, R3, R2, R1 on that. So you can use it for multiple things. Stay to the city council meeting that they wanted that to be divided no matter what the outcome was here. So I'm sure they have a few backup plans if need be to use that lot.
Okay. And to your knowledge, what type of dwelling is the applicant wishing to build on this property?
He's wanting to build a duplex. The type and style and what it would look like, I'm not sure. That would be a question for the applicant. And still have to meet all the setback requirements and all that for that use.
And if we were in theory to deny the request for an adjustment today, what type of dwelling would be able to be allowed to be constructed on the property?
If they wanted to put a dwelling on it, they certainly could. I confirmed with the city attorney this morning, because I had a question about that myself, and they could place a single-family lot on
Okay.
it, which would be the required of a 6,000 square foot lot within R2. So that is allowed. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so our process here is to walk through the 4 questions of variance that we are provided for in our training. Basically, the requirement that we have to operate under, based on this direction, is that each of the 4 questions must be met as an element or fundamental part of consideration of the variance. So the first question, I guess, is the applicant here? Okay.
Can I say some things just to clarify everything?
Yeah.
So I bought that lot to build my office, which is on that survey that I handed you guys before this. It was with my city meeting before I even constructed the office to do a lot split, to do a duplex on the back side. I was encouraged to wait. If you can look at that survey, the dotted line, my property, the easiest way, it was folded. The lots were like hot dog folded. The dotted line was the previous lots. I had to build my building for my office, which immediately created an encroachment. By the time I got my building done, the lot split process with the city was diminished. So I'm kind of in this situation due to not being able to lot split earlier like I planned. So there's been frustration from me as a developer. I'm trying to invest in 9th Street and make that area, there's a lot of dilapidated buildings and houses down that road. I'm really trying to make the area nicer. My building's full brick. It's gonna have lights, security cameras. This lot that I'm asking for a variance, it's already zoned C3, so I could put a construction property there, which was a backup plan to do a duplex type C3 where you could have 2 tenants. I've talked to multiple people in our area that we are not in need of commercial rental space. However, what we are in need of is a handicap accessible duplex. So my duplex is not just a normal duplex, and I have it drawn out. That's also in your pamphlet. There's plenty of room for the duplex in the plans that I've provided, in my opinion. It meets the 25-foot setback from the road. The vehicles are not going to be parked too close to the road, which I think is a main concern. The sides meet the city requirements for a duplex in R2. The backside, the backyard, if you will, in that drawing is 11 foot. The city's setback requirement is 20 foot. So I'm 9 foot short on a backyard. Once again, this is a handicap accessible duplex. I plan on paving all of it. So there's no lawn care for someone that's disabled to have to maintain. Our city doesn't have anything like it. I've been in real estate for 8 years down here. I've never been in one, seen, or heard of anything rentable for handicap accessible people. So to answer your question, the backup would be a commercial property, which I don't think our area needs. I think the duplex that I've proposed to you guys would meet the city's needs, and there's duplexes all around there from previous variance committees that have approved a similar lot size on the east side of 9th Street, also on the west side. Mine is right by, to give you a visual, it's right across the street from Wright's Hamburger. So there's duplexes all around there. I think it would be beneficial for our area to be able to have someone like me that's trying to meet the needs of people that don't have rentable properties that are in wheelchairs. So this would be an ADA duplex with handicap accessible bathrooms. So if there have any questions on that, there's drawings on there. That's the actual, the one with the cars on it. Those are, everything's drawn to scale. So I could potentially put carports on the side. There's room for 2 vehicles up front. All of that would likely be asphalt and no landscaping for the tenants. And then the other is the actual rendering of the duplex. So it's more of a craftsman style home. The only thing that won't be on there is that porch because it'll be handicap accessible. So it'll be a flush mount. People can get straight out of their vehicles and wheel straight into their house.
Can you give me a little more information on the, so you said you were originally asked for a lot split and you were instructed to wait?
So when I got my permit, which was December of 2019, my original surveyor drew my office and a building of this size, which is about, this is actually smaller. The one that I have is 1,600. This duplex is 1,600 square foot. The original survey had a 2,000 square foot building. Instead of doing a lot split, I'm not blaming the city by any means. It's smarter to do that after when the building was constructed so they can go out there and set pins. But yeah, I just went through the rezoning last month, as Danielle said, and it was all approved. And then now, had I been able to move my building a little bit more, wouldn't be dealing with a variance. So I don't know who to cast a stone out, me as a developer or the city for not letting me encouraging me to wait until the completion of the building was done. But we're here now, and so I'm trying to follow the rules and go through the process, and I genuinely just want to make this area nicer and better. And from what I've talked about, our area is not in need of commercial space right now.
So just to elaborate a little bit further, if your building had originally been, you could have moved that building and fit all of this on here and be within the city requirements?
My office?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of room to do whatever we needed to do. So I think there's a hardship created by doing this replat after the building was constructed and forcing me now to do I won't say forcing me, but now I have to do a variance due to the location of the building.
Daniel, do you have any comments on that?
I'm not sure what happened as far as the lot split requirements, but it was earlier this year. I don't remember the exact month. I'm guesstimating probably around March or so, where the city attorney came to staff and said that we can no longer do lot splits due to state statute. It wasn't anything that the city done. State statute is preventing us from doing lot splits because it says in the state statute that everything has to be approved by the governing body, and the governing body is city council. So that's kind of where that decision went to. Just since that came up, I wanted to give that clarification. The other consideration that had to be made as far as where his building went was also he needed parking. That's per ordinance that you have to have a certain number of parking spots per business. So I don't know what that number is. I'd have to look it up, but that may have played a factor as well, depending on how all that works. But there's still parking requirements that need to be met for the initial use. Now for the current case that we're dealing with, like I said earlier, the structure would have to meet all setback requirements. If it does not, then there'd have to be another variance done, because we can't issue a permit if it doesn't meet current statute or current ordinance. There's no way around that. So I'm just letting you all know that as well. If it does not meet the setbacks and all that for that zoning, so for a duplex, it'd have to meet that R2 duplex requirements for setbacks and everything, then it would have to be required for another variance if it did not meet that.
Danielle, while you're at the microphone.
Sure.
looking at the materials for this request, I noticed that the staff recommendation, municipal staff recommendation, is to deny this request.
Correct.
And that was based on the conditions of this lot are not peculiar to this piece of property. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So essentially what's happened is he's more or less created his own hardship, in our opinion, because he's created the lot of 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
It's nothing against the development. It's nothing against him at all. We have to look at it within our ordinances and what we are bound by. And to get a variance, it is not meant to be easy to get a variance. A variance is meant to be something that is reasonably hard to get. That sounds rough, but it's not meant to be something that's just given out easily. You have to have a particular situation that requires that.
I don't want us to have to do external research, but off the top of your head, are you familiar with any prior granted variances to permit the construction of duplexes on property this small?
Not to my knowledge, no, without looking into it, but off the top of my head, I'm not aware of it, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
There's plenty in that. I can send you the addresses if you would. I didn't bring those with me, but there's plenty that are 6,000 square foot in our town. Previous board, obviously, prior to, yeah, you can ask me a question.
Okay, so it's Mr. Barnett, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Barnett, I'm not sure that I fully understand what the city did to discourage you from pursuing the lot split prior to the state legislation that is now impeding your ability to do that. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so if you guys will look at that survey, there's a dotted line that runs west and east. This paper that you have is a new survey that was, and I had to spend almost $4,800 to go through this whole process. So the fact that the city is taking a stance that they didn't create this, it's cost me way more money than what I wanted to do up front, which was a lot split. So my property originally, when I bought it, was split top and bottom like a hot dog fold. It was real skinny. My building that's drawn on there was going to overlay 2 lots. So I'm a real estate broker. I said, hey, I need to fix my lots because my building's gonna be an encroachment. We had a city meeting. It was casual. Hey, there's no urgency in that. Just get your building done and then we'll lot split it and you can do the survey at the very end. Well, here we are. It's taken me a long time to build my building, as you know, with all the construction stuff going on. So I started it in December of 2020, sorry, last December. I'm almost a year in on my note. It's just now where I went to go get a lot split to fix the encroachment issue, and instead of doing a lot split, the city has abandoned that, and we talked me and Danielle, that's a whole different process, but yeah, it's cost me almost $5,000 to go through this replat, which is ridiculous for our city. So what you're looking at is Barnett Way. The city made me go through a replat and replat my lots into a subdivision. And it's already been approved, thankfully. But what you're looking at is a subdivision with Lot 1B and Lot 1A of Barnett Way. And then now, unfortunately, that lot over there is too small to meet the R2 requirements, which was the desired plan to begin with of a duplex. And that's why I'm asking for a variance. I'm honestly just trying to make our city better. I mean, you guys can make the judgment on yours. This isn't a dispensary. I don't think we need commercial on 9th Street. This has got road frontage on Louisiana. Some of the worst properties in our town are surrounding my property. I paid over the appraisal price for my land. I bought into the vision of 9th Street becoming the Arts District and hopefully being a nicer, cleaner area that connects Durant to the casino. So what I'm asking to do is put a new structure there for a handicap accessible rental instead of doing a commercial. I already can do a commercial, it's zone C3, I just don't think we need it.
Thank you. Okay, and just to clarify, I mean, our ability to either approve or deny the variance will be based on these 4 questions that we need to run through real quick, and that's all we have to operate under.
I don't think I created my own hardship. So I think the city, by allowing me or encouraging me to not do the survey until my building was done, has put us in the situation. If I would have been able and encouraged to do that before I ever broke ground on that building, we would not be in this meeting. And it's cost me almost $5,000 to wait. I don't know how much a lot split was, but I'm pretty sure it was under $500.
So the question of hardship goes to the mandatory questions 1 and 4, but we still have 2 other mandatory questions that we're required to satisfy. Question number 2 is the conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. How are the restrictions peculiar to this particular piece of property?
Well, I mean, it's a commercial zoning, and I'm looking at doing a residential R2. So I would say it's peculiar. I mean, there's not very many areas in Durant that I would say are C3 and R2, which makes it a unique property.
I think to elaborate on that, so we, based on what we have to operate under, is what makes this property different than another 6,000 square
Yeah.
foot property.
Yeah, I mean, how about the fact that the city told me to just build my building and then we'll survey it later?
Can I ask, who, do you remember who specifically told you to wait on your survey?
Danielle, I believe, was in that meeting with Mark Hall and the other Mark. I don't have anything in writing. It was a great process. I'm not saying that what they did was wrong. It's very common. Well, let me back up. In a new construction, I also build houses. The first thing I'm going to do is pull survey and pull string to make sure I'm building on the property line. When you have a situation like this where you're building and it's a known encroachment, that was the argument, was like, well, you're going to have, I'm encroaching my own lot, was like the city stance, so that I would be wasting money doing a lot split because I was just encroaching I'd have to sue myself. So they were genuinely, I think at that time, maybe trying to save me money, which ultimately cost me money, because then they got, magically the lot splits went away this March or April.
Maybe just one other thing. I think you're definitely touching on some things there that we need to consider, but one thing that in previous case studies that we've been provided is added advantage and monetary benefit are not sufficient grounds to stand alone to warrant the granting of a variance. So I understand that there's definitely been some of that, but we probably need to focus on the things that are outside of that as well, just to help with the conversation here. 'Cause those alone aren't enough for us to provide the variance. Any other questions on the board?
The third criterion reads that if relief is granted, we have to avoid causing any substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes or intent of the ordinance. So in this case, the ordinance, in essence, requires the lot size to be a little larger in order to build the requested structure. Can you speak to any other hardships that would be created in regard to your intent here outside of your argument about how you were led by the city?
I don't understand that question. What do you want me to answer now?
Seems like the general thrust of your statements to the board today have been, well, we wouldn't be in this situation if we hadn't gone down a certain path with lot split request, right? And so my question is there any analysis that you can provide to us outside of that rationale that would warrant granting the variance here?
I mean, I think I'm in a hardship with the lot size regardless of what structure goes there, and would likely be back in another meeting trying to appeal this again. That drawing is drawn to scale. In my opinion, professionally, there's plenty of room to do what is requested. And so I think the hardship's gonna remain with me of what do I put on that lot that's gonna benefit our area?
I think the last part of that question is the comprehensive plan and future use. I see something on that in there as well.
I apologize. apologize, I did not mention that, and I should have. Okay, so we just adopted a new future land use map and comp plan as of September. But the current one that was in place when the application came in was showed this area to be as highway commercial.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Was that the case at the time of the application?
Yes. It's highway commercial, it's on the application.
So I think for the third question, relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purpose and intent of the ordinance. That one, for me, doesn't seem to be a concern. I don't think that building a handicap accessible duplex is going to cause substantial detriment to the public good. The one that I'm still stuck on is number two. Because, so number one, the application of the ordinance to a particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship. Such conditions are peculiar to this particular piece of property. So my reading of those together is that we need to see that the application of the ordinance requiring the duplex to have the full 8,000 square feet would create a hardship on this particular plot that would not be created if we applied it to a different plot. So is there a particular problem that you are facing that you would not face if you had another 6,000 square foot plot under similar circumstances where you wanted to build this as a result of the nature of this particular plot? That's what we have to work with.
I mean, I'm sandwiched between residential and commercial. So my office is C3, the next property over is R1, I believe. So it's very unique. In my opinion, with the high frequency of commercial zoning, it's much easier to look at something like this and say, this makes more sense for an R2 than what we used to do with spot zoning and just dump an R2. And you can drive anywhere in town. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's duplexes, they're newer, randomly in town, where this is sandwiched between residential and commercial. It makes much more sense to me as a developer to look at it from that standpoint. I'm not just throwing a golf ball down 3rd Street and wherever it lands, I'm asking to build a duplex. This is surrounded by commercial property. I could build a duplex for commercial with no problems. It's already zoned for that. I'm just trying to make our city better. I mean, that's my stance on this. You guys have common sense. You're volunteering for this board for a reason. I don't know what questions or check boxes you have to mark, but ultimately that's my stance as someone who's not from Durant. I'm tired of watching our area make decisions that like this whole rezoning thing for me, that is blasphemous that I have a subdivision now for my office that it has cost me $4,800. That is not acceptable to me to be able to have these conversations with the Choctaw Nation and CMC and these companies that are bringing jobs here. And our city is trying to go forward. Everybody in this room wants our city to be better. And we come to these moments, whether it's my variance or zoning or whatever, and we make these blanket decisions instead of just using local knowledge, common sense local knowledge. This is on 9th Street and I'm wanting to do a handicap accessible duplex. If that's gonna make our area better, I'm asking for a variance. If you guys think that we need to have a commercial building there, right across the street from the school, then you guys can make that judgment. I wanna build and develop our area for the needs that I see, and that's why I'm here for this meeting. So I don't know how to answer all the riddles that you guys have that you have to answer for yourself, but I am asking you to use your local knowledge and what our area actually needs to help me and other developers that are coming to Durant with bullish opportunity to make this place better, whether it's sidewalks, handicap accessible rental units, doing stuff the right way, and making our area better. That's my genuine goal for this. So I didn't mean to go on that rant, but I'm $4,800 in the hole for something that I feel like our city has put me in a corner of not being able to do the things that our area needs. And it's not one person's fault. We're all trying to get better in this, but I hope I answered that question, or maybe I beat around the bush.
Move to put item 3A to a vote.
Second?
I have to call that.
So what you'll need to do now is open it up for public hearing, if in case anybody in the audience has anything that they would like to say, and then see if there's any further discussion, and then you can call for a motion.
Okay, is there anyone here that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. I'm Irene Moore. I live next door to the property at 47 University. I would like to ask each one
No,
of you
they-
a question.
It's the wrong,
It's on a
If
different
it was
property.
your,
it's the wrong property, ma'am.
We're on,
We're not considering that property yet.
we're not on number 2?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, okay, I'm
That'll be the
sorry.
next, that'll be the next one, though.
I get a head start.
Well done.
is there anyone to speak on item A?
Discussion.
You can just discussion or ask for a motion.
Yeah, I'm ready to vote.
I can vote.
Okay. Do I motion for it, or? All right, call for a motion to vote.
I move to put item 3A to a vote.
And I'll second that.
What are you, you have to say what your
Your-
is to approve, deny.
Motion to approve item 3A.
To approve the variance?
I move to approve, and we can vote yes or no on whether or not to approve.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Call. Do I have a
Second, yeah, I'll second it again.
Then call for a vote.
And now I call for a vote.
We're voting on
She's
whether,
gonna, she'll call your name.
She's got to call your
Well, I
name.
just need to clarify, is it a motion to approve or deny the request?
The motion's to approve.
Motion to
If we
approve.
vote yes, we'll be voting to approve. If we
Okay.
vote no, it's to not approve.
Okay, sorry. David Rhines,
Yes.
Michael Davis,
No.
Mike Allen,
no.
Connor Alford,
No.
Wayne Jones.
Yes.
Okay. So the item is a no. Okay, moving on to our next item. All right, item B, discussion, consideration, and possible action on BOA 2021-03, request for variance to 157-032 regarding the side setbacks for property located at the 4700 block of University Boulevard.
This is another variance. This one is a request for the side setback variance. The current ordinance requires, the current ordinance, requires a 15-foot setback. This is on an already developed plat that was accepted several years ago. Let's see. So they are asking for the setbacks to be 5 feet instead of 15, so they're asking for a 10-foot 10-foot variance of the ordinance. There were, at this time, there's been several emails and letters that were sent. You guys received some that were received a little bit later after the packets went out. There were some that was for the item and some that were against. So that's where the people were at. The comprehensive plan has this area, appears to have the area as high-density residential and general commercial. And again, we did accept it in September, so the new plan is probably different, but at the time of application, it was high-density residential and general commercial. As a note, the setbacks are generally used to prevent crowding of properties, to help prevent buildings from falling in on each other should there be significant damage or anything like that. to help get pipelines and easements, or apologies, before water lines, things like that to be inserted. The staff recommendation on this one is also for denial. Again, doesn't seem to be as creating as an unnecessary hardship. The applicant is here if you have any questions for him, and I'm here if you have any questions for me.
Okay, well, I think we have the benefit of going through the same process again, so I'll have the applicant
Hold
speak.
on, I had a question for Danielle. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
You're good, I'm good.
You mentioned that the rationale for the 15 for the setback, as the ordinance has it, is due to safety, building collapse issues, as well as the installation of utilities.
Correct.
Are you familiar with anything that would affect this property in particular instead of just in general?
I am not. I'm not exactly sure where the water or sewer lines
Okay.
are on this one. There's none that's laid into the property at this point, to my knowledge. So I would not know if there's any particular issues as far as where the water lines are going to be laid. Typically, they're typically done in some sort of right-of-way or roadway, but there's usually private ones that's going to go in between buildings and things like that that are not city-owned. Sometimes that happens, especially with multifamily, but I'm not sure on this one. The applicant may know kind of where his idea of laying the lines are.
Okay. And then I had another question.
Sure.
If we were to deny the request today and keep the setbacks as statute requires them, then is the property still usable for other structures?
That one is zoned currently as R3. Yes, they'd be able to use it for other structures. It would be duplex or single family.
But not a triplex as requested?
Correct, not as triplex, correct.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, for Danielle.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Sorry?
this property was originally, has an approved plat from 2006.
Yes,
So we're using that plat. They're still keeping that plat, and they're just making the buildings on each plat, on each lot, bigger.
correct. The original is accepted as a PUD plat. The original plan was to put single-family homes and duplexes, and I think at the back have some multifamily. But that was the original idea back when it was originally created.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you get started. I maybe would encourage you to focus on those first two as we go through this, where, you know, the hardship and what makes this property peculiar to that piece of land.
Okay, so Zach Everett, I am the developer. I am a local Durant child, I guess you could say, kid. I'm 27 now, born and raised here, went to Southeastern. Mr. Jones actually almost convinced me to go safety. I had a class with him and it was very close, but ended up going business. Anyways, so I kind of want to take a step back if that's okay. I think a lot of these things can be very black and white and just very descriptive, if you will, but I think a lot of things are based in purpose. I think, well, he's not here anymore, but Spencer, you know, his purpose is what's shown through, and I wanted to kind of explain my purpose for this. And so me and my business partner originally purchased this property a few years back with intentions of doing a senior housing development. So Durant has currently only one senior housing development here in town, which is on Larkspur across from Victory. And I'm not sure if you have been in there or not, but they're awful. So they're about 20 years old now. My grandma actually lives in them currently. And about a month ago, we had to go pull her out of that house because it was 85 degrees in August in her room. And it's not locally owned, it's not locally managed anymore, and so trying to get anything fixed is not happening. In fact, I had to pay myself to go have an HVAC looked at for her, and they didn't want to change. They weren't willing to change it. And so with that, the purpose for this property is for a 55+ community development. It does somewhat come down to finances and economics. Back when this thing was done in 2006, it was much cheaper to develop things. It's going to cost about $500,000 just for the development of it, which if I can mitigate that amongst let's try that again. If I can mitigate that amongst more doors, that allows for a cheaper rent. And my thoughts are, so that senior housing on Larkspur is HUD funded. And so those people that live there, they're able to get affordable rent. Everyone talks about how Durant needs affordable rent. Well, the only way to do that is to develop it is to lower your cost per door. And the only way to do that is get more doors, obviously. So with that being said, I'm trying to go into this with having 36 units so that I can rent them for $1,000 a month. If I can't do 36 units and I'm forced to have to do 24 units, then that's going to cause me to increase my rents 30% just to break even. And so I think where the hardship comes into play is that when I was assessing this property and looking at purchasing it, we ran the numbers and we're like, okay, I think we could maybe increase these to triplexes. I think there's enough room, but let's go talk to the city about that. And so I had a meeting with the city development, community development, and I said, hey, I'm looking at purchasing this property. I'm looking at changing it from a duplex community to a triplex community. What am I looking at as far as what are y'all going to require of me to do that? And there was 3 things. I had to provide lot sizes, so I had to have the lot sizes correct, which I think was in the last meeting, the last thing we just talked about. And I have all of those. All of my lots are of accurate size for a triplex. I had to have a sprinkler system, and indeed, I'm going to put sprinkler systems in the. And the last thing was to make sure that I had enough parking, and I have that in there as well. If I'm going to have enough parking, or I wouldn't get a certificate of occupancy. It was never told to me that the lot size, the side lot sizes were different, going from a duplex to a triplex. In fact, I'll go through the entire process. I buy the property, I go to city council and get it changed from to R3 where I could actually do a triplex. I get that approved. I finally get my funding. I've actually got less than 18 months now to build this out. And I'm funded, I'm ready to go. And I get my funding and I get my building permits turned in, and I call to find out, hey, where I'm at on my building permits. And at that point is when I'm told by community development that you're 2 feet too short on each side. And I said, okay, I can deal with 2 feet, no big deal. I'll just shrink it a foot on each side, no problem. And he says, oh, wait, hold on just a second. And the next thing you know, he comes to the phone and says, oh, surprise to me, it's 15 feet, not 5 feet. So not only did I not know this, but our own city employees did not know that it was 15 feet on each side, and I was never instructed of this. In fact, so it's interesting to me that the community development staff recommendation is to decline, because the whole reason I'm standing here today is because it was the community development staff's recommendation to me to get a variance. And so now here I am 2 months later, standing before y'all, and they're recommending now declining, whereas 2 months ago their recommendation was to go for it because it should get approved. Because in his words, it's ridiculous that there's 30 feet on both sides in between triplexes. So that's where I stand. It's all about keeping rent as cheap as possible if I can. Because I'm not going to go into this losing money. Obviously, I've got to pay my note payment. And so if I can do that with only $1,000 rent, I would like to do that. Questions?
I think we should just go through the criteria 1 through 4, one by one.
Yep.
Mr. Everett, I do want to go through the 4 criteria that we are required to follow sort of one by one.
Sure.
And so my first question for you is, if we were to apply this ordinance strictly, the 15-foot, what about the hardship to you would be considered, quote, unnecessary, unquote?
What of the hardship is unnecessary?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that the fact that I can build duplexes is deemed unnecessary. I don't understand these, as Spencer called it, riddles.
So Danielle described to us earlier that part of the rationale behind this ordinance was safety as well as the access to utilities, those
Okay.
types of things. Tell me
So-
why I shouldn't worry about that in regard to
Sure.
this property.
Sure. So utilities are going to be, I've got electric coming on the back of the property. Traditionally speaking, electric companies do not put their electric lines, transformers on the back of the properties for access on single family. However, OG&E has told me they're going to do it on the back of this one because I'm not putting fences up and stuff like that, and so they have access. And so electric lines are going on the back, and they're going straight to the back of the property. So there's not going to be any electric lines going in between buildings. Water lines and sewer lines sewer lines going down the road, and then frontage access, and the water lines will be on the front as well, directly to the properties, not in between the sides of the houses either, because they are triplexes, and I'll have 3 meters. I will center those in the center of the building so that less footage of pipe.
Do you have any documentation that you could provide? For example, you said that OG&E had already told you they were going to put it on the back. Do you have documentation you could provide to show that?
I don't have the engineered drawings. I've been working with them. They're committed to it, but I don't. Well, I guess I could say I have an email from them stating that I need to put my stakes on the back of the property where they're going to be putting their transformers. But at this point, I guess it's my word.
Okay.
Mr. Everett, the second criteria is that the conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. And as Mr. Alford, I think, was mentioning in our prior hearing, the way we think of that often is, why would we not apply to the same rules to you as we would to everyone else in Durant with a similar property? Can you speak to that?
According to our city inspector, he doesn't understand why there is a 15-foot setback for all triplexes in the city of Durant,
Okay.
which is why I'm here.